If you're an athlete, you know the greatest motivator of all is the fear of letting your teammates down. After all, a team is only as good as its weakest link. So you owe it to those wearing the same jersey as you to be your best every time you step on the field. That's why there's no vape in team. When you vape, you can expose your lungs to toxic chemicals that can damage your lungs. If you're a step behind, the team's a step behind. Brought to you by The Real Cost and the FDA.
Today's episode is wicked cool. On September 24th, 1846, just 15 minutes after midnight, German astronomer Johann Gottfried Galle discovered the planet Neptune. Hi, I'm Chris May, writer, producer, and host of This Day in Weather History, now in its second year from the Weather Network in Canada. Heinrich Louis d'Arrest took the looking glass and positively identified the planet Neptune at their observatory in Berlin. This day in weather history. If there is one thing that I love truly passionately, it's astronomy and astrophysics, as well as theories on space and life and the exploration of our solar system, our sun, and its planets. The discovery of potential life-sustaining planets has really exploded in recent years, but it's only been a short time in our modern human history since we were still discovering our own collection of 8. Neptune is the 8th planet from the sun. And how that was postulated was through observations and calculations. It wasn't originally through a telescope, it was done with math. And that was done by French astronomer Urbain Jean-Joseph Le Verrier, who was studying gravity-induced wobbles of Uranus, the planet closer to the Earth than Neptune is. This gave him the general area to look for what might be another celestial body. But remember, you can't do any of this without skies clear enough for a 19th century telescope to be able to reach out from the Earth's surface, break through our many layers of atmosphere, and peer deep into our night sky. On September 23, 1846, Le Verrier told Galle of his findings. Now, they stayed focused on its movement using background stars as their counterpoint of reference, noting any wobbles in the gravity waves. They held on to this position for 24 hours to make sure of their findings. You really had to have had a dominant area of high pressure in place in order for you to be able to hold a position looking deep into space for 24 consecutive hours. The next day, it was indeed confirmed a planet. Neptune has been explored a lot closer in the decades that have passed, obviously, and we know now that it is a blue gas giant, and it's 4 times the size of our planet Earth. Neptune's name comes from the Roman god of the sea by the same name because of the planet's ocean blue color. In 1989, the U.S. planetary spacecraft Voyager 2 was the first human spacecraft to visit Neptune. The images it has sent back have done the most to advance our knowledge of this world. Of its 8 moons, the largest is named Triton. What is a Triton? It's the famed weapon of the sea god, whose name was Neptune. Only relatively recently has it been discovered that the blue giant has rings, much like Saturn, but not as pronounced. There are 3 bright and 2 dimmer rings. So why do I bring this story to a podcast called Weather History? By exploring the planets in our immediate solar system, it gives us a better understanding of our own planet, how it maybe came to be, and based on what makes up the composition of others' atmosphere, what it is that makes ours unique, and that gives us a better appreciation and understanding of how we're alive here at all. This, in turn, filters down to the physics of what makes up the other planets versus Earth, and from there, we know better why things happen here at all, and that includes rain, lightning, hurricanes, tornadoes, droughts, cyclical monsoons, and other wild natural and weather phenomena alike. It's why space exploration is as critical to our species as it is. Without the desire to go outside our world and look back at it from a distance, we would have no clue where we actually are and what's around us. To be familiar with what you look like from the outside is to know what ails you when things go wrong. Satellites and the International Space Station beam back images of weather development and actual video of weather in action. This way we, on terra firma, can better forecast where it will go next and what it will do. And all this from our desire to be explorers. And now we know all there is to know about today's star, planet number 8, Neptune. Now I say star because it's the star of the show, but ironically enough, it was originally thought to have actually been a blue star when it was first seen by Galileo in 1613. He didn't know it was a planet, and it was not officially discovered until September 24th of 1846, this day in weather history. Hey, do you like the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. If you have an idea, go right now to wherever you're listening to me and rate us if you would, please. It's on a 5-star system, and we would love as many stars as you can afford. So rate us, but then also review us. This way we can always stay on top of how you'd like to see the show evolve. Then remember to subscribe to this podcast. Click the subscribe or follow button right there on the very same podcast homepage you're listening on. You'll be immediately reminded that the next day is ready to listen to, and you also have access to every episode in the archives. It dates back to June 1st of 2020, so there is a lot that we got to get caught up on this day in weather history. Tomorrow is September 25th. This is a day when the previous record for number of hurricanes at one time was observed at 4. While they were spinning simultaneously in the Atlantic Basin. Their names were George, Ivan, Jean, and Carl. That was the first time this had happened since 1893. On this day in weather history, with me, your host, Chris May.